Hi everyone, Amber here from So Majestic. Welcome back to my channel. It is another sewing marathon day presented by the Marathon Sewciety. And today we're doing a super fun pattern. It is the Louie waist pack by UhOh Creations. So thank you, Tara, so much for allowing us to feature your pattern. It is such a fun bag. So this is mine. I have made the medium size, and mine is constructed entirely out of waterproof canvas from Oh So Lovely. I'll have it linked below. So this gorgeous print was a rapport. So on the outside, I have interfaced with SF101 because it has the PU coating, not the PVC. So inside, I decided to do it exactly as written. There is a option for card slots. I don't use card slots in a bag, so I just left it completely open. And I chose the medium because there's so much space. I could put my full wallet in there as well as my phone, keys, and a few extra things. And since I did the medium, I decided the zipper, I decided to do the double zipper pull. These are available in the shop, as well as our over the rainbow zipper tape. I believe we're out of black, but we still have the white. And the back features a really cool zipper pocket. I love this because whether you wear it as like a fanny pack, a waist bag, or across your body, this is like hidden against you. So it's the great spot where you could like slip in your cell phone or anything like that. So like I said, I did the medium size. I think it is perfect for me. I'm 5'2". I did the webbing to the length written in the pattern, and even though I'm a little larger, it still fits perfectly. I'm backing up so you can see. I think that this size is like good for my body size and body shape, and it allows plenty of webbing room to wear it across, or I can tighten it enough that it fits around the waist. So I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. Thank you again to Tara. If you haven't already, please consider liking or subscribing. Helps my channel grow, and I appreciate it so much. I'm going to have timestamps in the description, and I'm going to link to all of UhOh Creations' social media, as well as the website where you can purchase this pattern, as well as a link to all the other creators that are making videos for today. So I hope you enjoy. All right, so I have all my pieces for the medium cut out. I'm using this waterproof canvas with the PU coating for both the exterior and interior. I have only interfaced the exterior pieces with SF101. All right, so I have 3 size 5 zipper pulls, plenty of zipper tape, this plastic buckle, and some nylon webbing I'm trying from Amazon. For tools, I have my Tex 35 thread from Wizardry Stitchery, plenty of clips, size 90-14 Microtex needles, a ruler, a stiletto seam ripper combo, 3 different types of marking pens, and some snips and a lighter. So our first step, we are working with our back bottom pieces. I have my lining and my exterior. I also have my zipper tape. I have not cut it down yet. Since I am doing the medium size, I am paying attention to the green measurements in the pattern. If you're doing this small, you want to make sure that you have it cut to the correct size. I just leave mine longer and trim at the end. So what we are going to do is we need our lining piece first, and we are putting our zipper pull so it closes to the left. This is so once we attach the exterior and fold it, it's going to be a little bit opposite of what most people usually do. It will leave our zipper pull opening left to right, but it's because I guess most people must wear this bag over their right hand shoulder, and then therefore your zipper will be like closing towards the top instead of the bottom. But it's really just about preference and what hand you are. There's not really a wrong way to do this. I am just going to do it according to the pattern. So I am clipping my zipper with the pull closing to the left, and I'm clipping it to the top of the lining piece, and we are going to take it to the machine and baste in place and I'm going to backstitch at the beginning and the end, and I am using my largest stitch length. And also, if you notice, when I was basting, I just clipping, I moved my pole out of the way. I find if you look really closely, you can kind of see there's like a bubble here. If you do not move your pole out of the way when you're clipping, that's one of the reasons people get a wavy, bumpy zipper. So when you are both clipping and top stitching or basting across, move your zipper pole out of the way so it doesn't become wavy. Okay, so I have just base stitched along the top. Now we are going to take our exterior back piece, put it right side facing down. If you have a directional print, be mindful it is going the correct way. And we are lining up, because my zipper tape's a little bit longer, I am lining up the fabric at the top and clipping it, making sure I'm moving my zipper pull out of the way as I'm clipping. And we are going to take it to the machine and stitch at our given stitch length in the pattern. And I am going to use my zipper foot, and I'm also going to use a shorter stitch length. So we just stitch along the top. So now we are going to fold this open and put our lining and our exterior, so they are wrong size together, and only your zipper tape is sticking out. And if you are using a material that you can iron, you could press this real quick. I see I'm just pulling away, but how there's like this bunched up, that can happen, especially with thicker fabrics. So I'm just taking my time, making sure that I am finger pressing away from the zipper tape as much as possible, especially on that lining side, because we don't want our lining being bunched up. It can get caught in the zipper. So once you have pulled it as far away as possible, we are going to take this to the machine and just top stitch along this side here. And top stitch I always do at the larger stitch length. So I have just top stitched along the zipper. So now we need our back lining piece and our back top piece. The first thing we are going to do is take our back with the zipper, and we are going to place it on top of our back lining. And we are going to clip it into place. So I'm just lining up. It should line up perfectly with the edges of your piece that you just sewed. So I'm just clipping that on real quick to hold it into place. You could baste stitch this in place. That might be helpful. In the directions, they don't say to do it, but it's something that if you don't want it to shift, you're going to see why in a second. Because now what we are going to do is take this back top piece and put it right side facing down. So if you have a directional print, be mindful. So again, I am lining it up with the sides of my fabric. So you are sandwiching the zipper between that back lining and this zipper top piece. So if this was if the lining was basted in place, it wouldn't shift. So right now I'm just being really mindful as I'm clipping this that I'm keeping my lining and that top piece here lined up as best as possible. And what we're going to do is take it to the machine, and we are going to put on a zipper foot, use our full seam allowance, and stitch this into place. All right, so we have just stitched at our full seam allowance through this exterior top piece in the back and that lining piece. So now we are folding only this top piece up. And we are going to take it to the machine and top stitch along the top of the zipper here. And that will top stitch it through this lining piece as well. That way when we are opening it up, our lining is not folded up, and we'll have the completed pocket with the lining on both sides. So I'm gonna take that to the machine and top stitch. Okay, so I have just top stitched through that exterior top piece. This is what it looks like from the wrong side. So now I am going to take my pattern piece that I have cut out, and we're going to place it over this back panel piece so we can trim it. So basically we are trimming it to the same shape as the front. In the pattern, it tells you the directions. On the panel pattern piece, there is a dotted line. We are lining up the dotted line with the center of this zipper. I am not going to show the pattern piece on camera, so I'm going to do that part off camera, but essentially we are cutting our back to match our front piece. So now we have trimmed down our back. I have a little piece here that I'm going to. It didn't get so well. If you want fray, use a lighter so your edges of your zipper don't fray. And then we need a lining, a main piece of our lining. So we are going to put our lining right side facing down, and we're going to put our back piece right side facing up. So before I clip this, it will look like this. So the wrong sides are touching each other. And this is because we are binding the back of the bag, which I forgot to include what I'm going to use to bind. I'm not sure if I'm going to use fold over elastic yet or something different. I guess I'll decide when that time comes. So what we're doing now is we're just going to flip around and then baste these together in place. So that means I'm using a longer stitch allowance, stitch length, and a very small seam allowance. And that is just to hold these pieces together so they don't shift later on. And we are preparing the back panel. So I'm going to take that to the machine and baste all the way around. Okay, so we have just base stitched. I really can't talk today. I apologize. All the way around. So I'm going to set this to the side because we are done with this part for right now. And now we need our zipper, our longer zipper. And this one does have to be cut exactly to the measurement. So make sure you do that. And our 4 zipper flanges. So what we're going to do first is I'm going to lay my zipper tape vertical, and I need one of the lining pieces right side facing up with my straight edge on the left, and I am going to place the zipper right on top of it, lining up the straight edge with that left hand side of my zipper tape. And I have not put my pulls on yet. You can put them on now if it's easier for you. I'm going to do this part first and then put them on. So now that that is just clipped, I am going to take it to the machine and just base stitch only along that piece, basting our lining in place. All right, so I have just basted that piece on. So now we need our exterior zipper flange, and we need to put it right sides down, and make sure you have there's a little mark on the pattern piece. Make sure you mark that point because it's very important. So I'm putting it right sides facing down so the straight edge is matched up with the edge of the zipper tape and the lining that we already basted. And I'm going to show you at the machine, not in time lapse. Because what we're going to do is I'm switching to a zipper foot, and we are going to stitch at our full seam allowance. But when we get to this dot that is marked, I am going to stop there with my needle down, and we're going to have to pull our zipper tape to align it with this angled edge. and then we are stitching to the point. So I'm going to do it in regular speed at the machine so you can see. All right, I'm at my machine. I have switched to a zipper foot. I also grabbed a stiletto because that may be helpful. So we're sewing at our full seam allowance, and definitely backstitch at the beginning. You're going to do it at the end as well. Okay, so we are sewing all the way up to that mark. My lining, or my interfacings, I didn't heat it enough on this one, so it's coming loose a little bit. I was impatient. Okay, so I'm just going to use my stiletto to help hold it in place, and I'm actually going to hand crank until I get to that dot. Okay, so I have stopped with my needle down perfectly in that marked position. So now I'm just going to bend this zipper tape away from my foot and sew to this point here at our given seam allowance. And I backstitched at the end. So it's kind of just creating this little curve within the zipper tape that is going to help when we put it around our actual bag. All right, so we have just stitched at our full seam allowance. So now we are going to fold both our exterior back and our lining so they are wrong sides together. If you are using a material that you can press, you can do that. Again, I'm making sure that my lining is pulled as far away as I can. I don't want it to get stuck in the zipper pull. And I just find it helpful to clip just to hold this until I top stitch it. So I am going to bring it to the machine and top stitch along the top of this zipper flange. So we've just top stitched along the zipper flange. So now we need to repeat it for the other side of the zipper tape. And what's extremely important is that you are being mindful that you are putting on this on the exact same side. So again, I'm lining my lining up with the edges, the bottom edge and that straight edge. We're going to clip it in place, baste it, do the same instructions. So you could see that it is going to, when it's done, it's going to fold out this way. So they're going to be on the same side of the zipper, or the zipper tape, I mean. So that's very important. So I'm going to repeat the steps that we just did over here for this side, except I'm going to do it off camera because it's the exact same thing.
Till I get up, time is barely on our side.
Okay, so I have my completed zipper, my exterior zipper gusset, and the lining. So I want the exterior, and now when our bag is done, these little pieces on the zipper are towards the front. So it's not really a big deal if your fabric is not directional, but if it is, you want to make sure that when we're done sewing the zipper and flipping it open, that your print is facing the correct direction. So I have my print facing me, and I'm going to put the zipper right side facing down. So that means that the teeth are facing down, and I am just going to center this. You can mark the center and be easier. I'm just kind of eyeballing it. The zipper tape should match up. One of my sides is like 1/8 of an inch short. I don't think it's going to be a big deal. It will fit in the seam allowance. So I am just centering it the best that I can. And I'm going to clip it and bring it to the machine, and I am going to base stitch this all the way across. And like I said before, when I am basting with the zippers and even clipping, I'm moving these pulls out of the way as my needle goes by. So again, I'm going to take it to the machine and base stitch along this edge here. Alright, so now that this is basted in place, I'm going to take my lining, put that right side's facing down, so that way the zipper is sandwiched between my exterior and my lining. And again, clipping this, moving the pulls out of the way. But now the only difference is I am going to sew this with my zipper foot at the full seam allowance. Again, just taking my time, making sure that I'm clipping everything to keep everything straight. Okay, so we're gonna sew at our full seam allowance along the clipped edge. Okay, so we have just stitched at our full seam allowance. Now we are going to fold back our lining and our exterior so they are wrong sides together. If you have a material that you can press, go ahead and do that. I like to clip the edge, that way it helps me pull it away from the zipper. So like I said before, you want to make sure, especially on the back, that your lining is really getting pulled away, so it doesn't end up getting caught on the zipper pulls. So I'm just taking my time, really pushing that out, clipping it. It's not so bad with like the waterproof canvas that has the PU coating, or some people call it the water resistant. I find I have more of that problem with the PVC. Okay, so now I am going to take this to the machine and I'm going to top stitch all the way along the zipper teeth edge, but I'm going to baste the other three sides closed just to make it easier when I do my gusset. So I have just top stitched along the zipper and basted all the way around. So now we need to attach the bottom, the base of our gusset. So I have the lining and the exterior here. So I'm going to start with the lining first, and I am going to align one side and clip the edge. It should be the exact width. If it's not, you can trim it if it's a little bit wider. The zipper tapes, standard 5, not all of them are exactly the same measurement across. So yours might not line up exactly. That's okay, just trim. So I have just, the lining is right side up. My zipper gusset piece is right side up. And now I'm going to put the exterior, and I'm going to put it right side facing down. Again, you want to be mindful that if you have a print, because what's going to happen is this is going to fold open to create our circular gusset. So I want to make sure that my print is going the correct way. So I am going to put that right side facing down. If you want to base this first, you can. You don't have to. And now I'm lining up that exterior edge. There we go. Okay. So I am going to take that to the machine and sew at the given seam allowance along the edge here. And we are going to do it for the same exact steps on this other side. So I'm actually just going to clip both at the same time. So I'm just lining them up, making sure that they are straight, lining the exteriors up. And now our bottom is not the same length as the zipper gusset, so you might have, see it's like a little bit extra here. That's fine, as long as you have them clipped on the edges. So I'm gonna take it to the machine and sew at my regular seam allowance along both edges here. All right, so we have just stitched along the edge on both sides. So now I am going to turn that so our lining will be wrong sides together. There we go. Our lining and our exterior will be wrong sides together. And what I'm going to do is try to, I like to pull at the edges here, and it should line up perfectly, your lining and exterior. Sometimes I get, if one material is different than the other, it doesn't line up exactly. If it doesn't, try to just like ease it in, because what we're going to do is we need to top stitch along here underneath the bottom of each zipper, but at the same time I'm also going to base stitch this exterior and lining together, and that will help us when we are sewing our gusset. We don't have to worry about as the layers separate. There are times where I don't base this together. Usually that's if I have something that is a little bit more stretchy and they don't line up so perfectly. Instead of getting like a bubble can happen, what I'll do is I'll leave them separate and try to ease it in the gusset. But because I'm using the same type of fabric for the lining and the exterior, and my seam allowances were exact, it's lining up perfect. Okay, so now I'm gonna take this to the machine so I can top stitch, like I said, underneath each zipper and base stitch all the way around. So we have just top stitched along both sides of our zipper and have basted our gusset together. So we're going to set that aside for now. Now you need both of your strap wings, and you need your strap and what she's calling the strap anchor. So you cut this anchor out of the full measurement of the strap. So I'm going to set one of these and the anchor to the side for a minute because I am going to be working with only one of them for right now. So I am folding this in half. So this is why I use the pink lining fabric, because if my fabric was directional, my print would be upside down on the back. So that's just something to be mindful of when you are cutting out your pieces, or even now, I guess this part would be like against your body and you wouldn't really see it anyways. So just personal preference. So we're going to fold it in half. And actually I creased it the wrong way. And real quick, when I press this, you can see how the interfacing shows. I'm just going to trim it, make my life easier. So sometimes this is done like before videos, but I also like sometimes showing this because I know when I first started videos, I was like, how does nobody have fraying edges or interfacing? And I want this to be like as real as possible. Okay, so in order to make this correctly, we are going to fold it right sides together first. And I'm just creasing it. And now I'm taking one edge of my straps and I am sliding it through. And off camera, there is going to be a measurement on this side. So I'm going to click off for a second to just make sure that I have the correct amount sticking out of the webbing over here. I don't want to use rulers on camera. Okay, so I just measured this. I have the correct amount sticking off to the right. Clips are holding my webbing in place. So now I'm going to take this to the machine and I'm going to stitch along from the starting at the top here along this curved edge, stopping at the bottom. Make sure you backstitch the beginning and the end. If you want to add a couple back stitches across the webbing to help secure it in more, that's great too. You do not want to sew this straight edge because we're going to have to fold it open after. So again, I'm going to take it to the machine and along this curved edge only. All right, so we have just stitched along that curved side. I added some extra back stitching. So now we are going to fold this right side facing out. depending on the material you use, you might have to finagle it. And I am going to take a chopstick just to kind of help poke out the corners. Okay, so now you are going to add some top stitching lines, and we are going to add them starting from here and going around top stitching. And then she recommends like a 1/4 inch from each line, adding some more. In the pattern, she shows 3 different lines of top stitching, so that's what I'm going to do. And we're also going to base stitch this raw edge closed. Alright, so this is what it looks like with it top stitch. I used, in order to, the first initial top stitch at 1/8, I always use the inside of my zipper foot, and then for the 1/4 inch, I use the outside as like the guide to get the lines. So we are going to repeat the same exact process for this strap anchor side. However, we're going to do something else to it once it looks like this. So I'm going to do this part off camera because it's literally the same exact way, putting it through, having this poke out a certain measurement, and the top stitching. So I'm going to come back after I do all the top stitching. All right, so this is our strap anchor side. So what we need to do now before we set anything aside is take our strap buckle, and we're taking the side that does not have the prongs, and we are attaching the webbing through it. We're going to end up folding it back on itself. So for the type of buckle I have, I'm going up through the farthest edge, down through here, the second opening, and then pulling through. If you have a different way, you can do a different way, whatever works best for you. That's how I like to do mine. So also, this is where if you have a D-ring, you could insert it over here, and we're going to sew like boxes to hold it on. So in the instructions, if you add the D-ring, you'd have a box here and then a box all the way to the left with measurements. Because I am not adding a D-ring, I am just going to put a couple clips to hold it in place, and then I'm going to sew one large box with an X in it to hold my webbing on. So you could do whatever you think is best. If you want to do multiple lines, whatever works for you to hold your webbing in place and hold that strap on. Okay, so I just did the box. I completely forgot to film the time lapse of it. But like I said, I just chose to do the box. You could do whatever stitching works best for you. So now we are going to take our exterior, and we have to baste these on. So we need, there's a measurement given in the pattern. So I'm going to mark it after off camera. But you are lining up your right edge. You want your strap buckle on the right, because this is going to be bound. So basically, like, this is going to open like this, and this is going to be your front. So you want to make sure that you're clipping the side with your buckle on the right and the side with just like the really long strap on the left, lining up the straight edges. These little triangles here, you could clip off either now or after you baste these into place. But we're going to take it to the machine and baste along the straight edges here on the right hand side and the left hand side, holding these wings into place. All right, so we have just basted on our 2 strap wings. So I'm just cutting off this triangle here on both sides. And I'm going to set this to a side because now we are going to work on the final construction And we need our front piece, our front exterior. All right, so now we are working with our front panel. I have the top center marked, the bottom center, and 2 marks on the side that are our gusset markings taken from the pattern piece. And I marked with chalk. Chalk is my favorite, especially on a dark fabric, and I love it because it just comes off so easy, especially the white chalk. We're also going to need our gusset. I did not mark centers on this yet, so how I'm going to do that is I'm going to line up the 2 sides on the gusset where the top stitching is, and I'm clipping them just because holding it in place makes this part so much easier. And for this one, I'm going to use a water-soluble marking pen. And I'm only putting it in the seam allowance, so when I pinch it like this, I'm just gently marking over here the center. And sometimes this does not come off polyester, so I am I'm only putting it in the seam allowance where it's not going to be seamed. And then up top, I'm going to use it here. But on the other side, I have my zipper. So again, I'm going to use chalk on that part. This one's a little bit hard. You could also use like a silver marking pen. All right. So we are going to attach our gusset to the front. Now, if you want to put a tag, like a label of your own or anything on this, I would suggest doing that now. And what we are going to do is we need to turn our gusset so it is the wrong side facing out. So the lining is facing out. And we need to attach it with our zipper tape, because when this gets folded open, we want our zipper on the front. So we're going to start with attaching the zipper tape. So I'm taking this mark here and aligning it with the top center mark. And I'm going to clip into place. And I'm not going all the way around yet. I'm just doing a little bit on the sides to help. And then I'm going to take my mark on the bottom, line off my center on the bottom. And same thing on clipping here a couple. And so now on the side, they call them the gusset markings on the pattern piece. Where our zipper gusset is attached to that bottom should line up with those markings. So then I'm going to clip there and a little bit up the side. And it might be easier to open your zipper for this. I think it's personal preference. Mark this other side. So I do all 4 marks first, and then continue clipping around. Now you can, in the pattern, it does suggest clipping around the corners on the zipper tape. I do not do that because a snip into the zipper tape could possibly cause it to fray. If you do that, I highly, highly recommend using fray check or a lighter to singe the edges and help them heal. And so now I'm just kind of like easing this in. So maybe from the back you can see here. It's a little bit tricky. Again, I guess I can put enough heat or for as long for my interfacing is kind of coming up a little bit. So it's fighting me. So I'm just taking my time clipping all the way around the rest of the gusset. I am snipping into the bottom corners, but I'm not doing it where the zipper tape is. I'm then going to sew around at a slightly smaller than the given seam allowance, and I am going to use my zipper foot because it will run along the edge of the zipper, and be mindful to try to make sure that I do not get any creases.
Hold me close till I get up. Time is barely.
Okay, so I have just stitched on the gusset. If you want to flip it out to check, you can. What I did now is I opened up my gusset completely and I moved my zippers as far down as possible because we are sewing along this zipper flange, so that way the zipper pulls do not get in my way and I won't have to move them. Because now what we're doing is we are taking our second lining piece, putting it right sides down, and we are sandwiching between our gusset piece between the edges. So that's why it's helpful to have this open. We want our main side facing up, lining facing down. If you want to mark the centers and do all that, you can. I'm just going to start clipping from, like, match up the corners first and then go all the way around. And this is why on the first one I did a smaller seam allowance, because we're going to sew on this one and it says to go over the seam allowance you just did. And my worry is that if I don't do that perfectly, I'm going to see my first stitching or my second stitching. So by doing a slightly smaller seam allowance the first time around, I am going to make sure that that stitching is not visible. So I'll just, I'm just clipping all the way around. Like I said, making sure that gusset is smushed inside. Especially careful around the zipper tape. If I'm going to have any trouble, I feel like that is where the trouble is going to come from. So like I said, be extra mindful there. I used my stiletto to try to help me. And like right now, I'm trying to flatten it as best I can as I'm clipping it. You can see my zipper moved in a little bit, so I'm aligning it with the edge of my zipper, not that exterior that's showing. I don't think it'll be much of a problem. Or I'm hoping not anyways. We'll find out once this gets all the way done and turned. Now, as I'm clipping this, the other important thing is we need to leave a turning fold because the front part of this bag is turned. We're not binding this part. That's why we are sandwiching the gusset inside. So down here along the bottom, I need to be mindful to leave about a 5-inch turning hole. If it's helpful for you to mark that, do something to help you remember, because if you sew all the way around, you're just going to have this all sealed up and you have no way of turning it right side out. And again, so I'm just finishing up the clips here, and now I'm going to take it to the machine. I'm going to start on one side, go all the way around at the full seam allowance, back stitching at the beginning and the end, and leaving about a 5-inch turning hole along the bottom here. Okay, so I have sewed all the way around. I'm hoping that my zippers in the corners did not crinkle. I have my turn hole down here in the bottom. So now I am just going to reach inside and then just gently turn the right side facing out. And actually, before you do that, if you want to like trim the corners down here on the bottom a little bit, if you want to trim the seam allowance, you can do that. Do not do it up at the top though. The top is where our zipper tape is, and we definitely don't want to cut into that. So I did at the bottom a little bit. So I'm just taking my time, really pushing everything through, poking out the corners. I want to make sure that everything looks nice, because once we seal this up, we cannot fix it. All right, so I've just finished turning it. I'm leaving it with my gusset up and the zipper open because now we need to top stitch along the outside. In the pattern, she recommends starting at like the side here where the zipper gusset meets the bottom and going up and around. I'm going to go around the whole thing because over here we have a turning hole and I don't want to hand stitch this closed at all. So if we top stitch all the way around, we're going to seal up that opening. So where your opening is, I just kind of tug the edges so it closes nicely together. And when we top stitch this, it should seal it. So for right now, I'm just pinning it to kind of hold it in place, and I'll have to move that before I top stitch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start, like I said, it's easier for me to top stitch with this facing up. And so I'm going to start probably on the side. I am going to back stitch. It will be a little bit noticeable, but not too much. You could tie it off if you wanted so the ends aren't noticeable. My zippers, there's a little tiny fold, but it's almost not even noticeable, so I'm not worried. And actually it's really only on this one side here. You can see it's a little bit less of the seam allowance. So try to flatten it as best you can, and we're going to top stitch all the way around the inside. When I get to the bottom, what I'm going to do is just remove these clips so that way I am top stitching it properly.
Hold me close till I get up.
All right, so I have just finished top stitching all the way around. So first thing I'm going to do is just check to make sure that I enclosed the ear. We don't want an opening here that will cause us a problem in our bag. So my top stitching definitely caught it. So now I'm just going to turn it right side out just so you can see what this looks like. So you can see I have my top stitching all the way around the front. I'm pretty happy with how it came out. There's like a bright pink spot in the fabric here, and that's where I did my back stitching. And honestly, I don't even think you can tell, especially from far away. So that was really nice that hid my thread. So I'm really happy with it, and we're going to move on to the next step. All right, so now we need to add our back. In order to do that, we need to turn this so that it's lining side out. If there's anything that you want to fix, now's the time to do it because we are putting on the back. So now I have the back panel here with the strapping. It makes it a little bit kind of a pain. You could clip this or use a rubber band elastic to hold it together. Actually, that's what I'm going to do because it's kind of long. And so on here, I have put the markings again for the center and the side gussets. And we're going to repeat the same steps. Make sure that you have your zipper open, or otherwise you will seal up your bag. You won't be able to turn it. You'll have trouble. So again, I'm going to mark my centers at the top and bottom, or clip my center at the top and bottom. Line up that gusset to the mark on the side, and then I am going to clip all the way around. This side is going to be bound, so we don't have to worry about leaving a turning hole. We're going to sew all the way around. I am going to do slightly smaller than the seam allowance because we are going to add binding on. And I'm going to do that part larger. So now I'm going to clip all the way around. This side does not have the zipper tape, so you can clip into all four corners of your gusset here, that will definitely help. So I'm going to do all that in time lapse. And like I said, once I get it clipped, we're going to sew all the way around. I'm not going to switch to a zipper foot this time because, again, it is not near, it's not near the zipper. So I'm going to use my regular zipper foot, regular stitch length, and I'm going to do slightly less than the seam allowance given in the pattern. Alright, so I didn't time lapse, but I have sewed all the way around the edge. It does get a little thick here where that binding is. I'm not binding, the webbing inside. So I did have to hand crank over that. So now our last step in construction is to attach binding. So I decided to use fold over elastic. This is only about 3/4 of an inch wide. So it doesn't give me as much margin of error. But I sewed the edges together about 1/4 inch. So that way it's a nice seam. And I cut it slightly smaller than the bag because I find that when binding, if it's cut slightly smaller and fold over elastic when it's stretched, at least on my machine, is easier to sew. So I'm actually going to put the crease or the seam, open it up and put it at the top of my bag because it's less likely to be seen than the bottom. So I'm going to clip that here, and you can see that this will stretch all the way around, and I'm going to stretch just to help, and then clip my bottom. And the idea is that you want to encase all your raw edges. If your seam allowance isn't so even, you may need to trim down parts of it to make this fit. What I did do is I switched out to black thread. I always match my thread to my binding, so in case it is not, perfect, it kind of blends in. And I find that binding is pretty forgiving. It goes into the edges of your bag. You're not really going to see it, so don't stress too much about it. Oh, I realized I might have flipped this around as I was sewing. Well, I hope I didn't sew it. I guess I just clipped it on wrong. It was twisted, so make sure you don't twist it if you've also sewed it together. The other options that people use, you could use double fold bias tape. I like that finish too. It just requires more steps to sew it, so that's why I like the fold over elastic. You could use waterproof canvas that has the PVC backing so it doesn't fray. Whatever works best for you and your machine. It's my biggest proponent, just like learning your machine and what works for you. So I'm going to finish clipping this around. Once I've clipped it all, I'm going to take it to the machine. I, again, like sewing with my gusset side up, and I am just going to top stitch all the way around, but because this is also holding it together, I do use a smaller stitch length. I don't use my top stitch length. So I'm going to go all the way around, back stitching at the beginning and the end.
Hold me close till I get up. Time is barely on our side.
Right, so I have just finished top stitching all the way around the binding. So you want to check to make sure that you caught all the edges all the way around. I actually didn't catch up here on the back side, and this is why I use a thread that blends. So I literally just did another row of top stitching, and you can barely tell because it blends right in with the thread. So once you are satisfied with your binding, you are going to turn the bag right sides out. And you can see that binding just sits like right in the edges of what we have sewed together. So like you don't really notice if you had to do a double row of stitching or if there's any like smaller little blemishes with it. So now we're almost done. We just have to finish up our strap. Now we just have to finish our strap. So I have the full length here. I also have my prongs and the slider. So I'm going to take my strap, making sure it's not twisted, going up from the left-hand side, over that center bar and down. And now normally if we were doing a crossbody, we would thread it, or not thread it, but like fold it over and stitch it here. But we are doing the waist bag. So I'm going to move this down to give myself some room to work and leave a gap here. So now I'm going to thread the edge through the prongs, and you want to make sure each of these are different. So I'm going up the left side, up and over the center bar, and down and through. And that works for mine. Some of these have 2 holes, some have 1, and you'll see that will fit perfectly. It's facing the right side. So now I need to take that end. I still have them looped here, and I put extra space through the slider so I can make it work easier. So I am going to go back through that center piece, thread it up and over and back down. So if I were to pull these all tight, I have my prong piece here, I have my slider, and on the back it looks like this. And what I need to do is just fold this raw edge over and sew it. Let me just double check where to sew it, because I don't want to tell you to sew it to the wrong spot and you will not be able to adjust your belt. All right, so I just double checked. I don't want to tell you to sew it to the wrong thing. I am going to fold my edge under twice, because this is, or actually just once is fine. It's seatbelt webbing. I singed the edge. It's not going to fray. So if I'm looking from the side, this is what it looks like. This is the piece hanging down. So I'm folding it under about 1/2 inch. And then on this side here where the buckle is, there's 2 straps. I want to sew it to the bottom only. So this is the piece, the part that I'm sewing it to, the bottom is the part that I just threaded up and over the center. If I sew it to this top one, I'm not going to be able to adjust it. So you want to make sure you move that out of the way and you sew to the bottom only. And I'm just clipping it to hold it in place. Now for this, you could sew a box, whatever you prefer. You could put rivets. I prefer to sew, and I'm going to do 2 lines of top stitching vertically to hold it in place. All right, so we have just finished our Louie waist pack. I'm obsessed with it. It turned out so nice. I think the medium is such a great size. I'm so happy that I decided to do it exactly as the pattern was written. This is what it looks like on the back, as well as the inside. So thank you again, Tara, for allowing us to feature your pattern today in the Sewing Marathon. As I said before, I'm going to have a link to all of UhOh Creations' website and social media, as well as a link to all the videos that are being featured today. I hope you're enjoying the marathon, and I'll see you next time. Bye.